Good morning, everyone. We are excited for another edition of the Victorian Streetlighting Changes 2026 to 2031. This webinar is an update to the webinar that we ran in June and is to give all you councils out there a quick update on what changes have happened since June. We'll do a little recap on it as well. But before I get too carried away with streetlighting excitement, I did want to acknowledge that we are presenting here from the lands of the Wurundjeri in Melbourne. It is the Buath Guru season, which is when there's lots of pollen and lots of grasses doing exciting things. Butterflies are also excited because this is the time when there's lots of food for them. And I've got some grapevines on my front porch where there are lots of caterpillars eating their way through it at the moment.
My wife is excited about, sorry, I'm Noel, and my wife is excited about Meerbank daisies, which are prolific across Victoria and have been quickly eroded since we brought hooved animals into the country.
Yep. So it's an exciting time of the year, breath of life after winter, and then just before the full heat of summer. So I'd like to acknowledge that we are on ancient lands and it's an awesome country. We love it. We are Ironbark. I think most of you already know us. We're excited about street lighting, also excited about reducing emissions and working with councils and distributors to do that. Today, we are going to spend a little bit of time on background, as I said. We will talk about what the AR has said about the distributors' initial proposals and how DNSPs are responding, and then what it all means for councils' next steps. Importantly, there will be plenty of time for questions and answers. And as importantly, we have two tour guides today, myself, and Noel has kindly joined us, as you just heard his voice 10 seconds ago, who's the public lighting lead at not one DNSP, but three. So Noel will give us a rundown of some of the key issues in City Power, Powercore and United Energy. And without further ado, let's jump into it. As always, please stay on mute. When we get to the Q&A, feel free to unmute yourself or pop your questions in the chat, and we will attempt to get through every question. If you can have your face up, it's way better to see people than see a blank screen. And as always, this webinar is relatively casual. We're happy with any question asked respectfully and intelligently. Intelligently is optimal, but you don't have to do that. But we'll answer as best we can. And if we can't answer by the end of this session, we'll see what we can do afterwards. Before this webinar and the previous one, you said that these are the key things that are most important to you. So you want to understand what the change is. You want clear advice on what council's role is in the street lighting changes over the next 6 years. You also want to know what the roles and responsibilities of the DNSP is, DTP, people like Ironbark, councils, etc. You want to know what the systems and tools are. There are brand new tools and systems that will become available to councils. And what are the budget implications? So what happens in next year's budget? What are our costs? What are our savings? So these are the key things that are still relevant now and are still important in the second webinar, and we will continue to focus on these as key things to report back to you. After this session, as always, we will be recording it and then we'll send it through to you. There is, by both myself and Noel, are happy to be contacted if you've got any other follow-up questions or want to discuss. And as always, if you want specific support or more detail about anything that comes up today, there is a support request form that you can jump onto and click on, and we'll get in contact with you and help you out. All right, without further ado, let's give a little bit of background. This is a light touch. If you do want more detail, please go back to the recording of the June webinar, and you can have a look at a bit more detail. But the background is to this: every 5 years, the DNSPs put in plans to the Australian Energy Regulator on what they're going to do for the entire distribution network. And a very exciting part of it is what happens with street lighting. So that happened earlier this year as a draft. The councils reviewed that draft and provided some input into it. And the AER has then put in a formal draft decision on the initial proposals. The DNSPs are now busy revising, updating, probably very close to finishing or already finished the revisions to their drafts, which will come out in December. And then council will get another look at it later this year, early next year, if we want to provide more feedback. In terms of the key elements in that response, the things that were proposed initially by the DNSPs were replacing most of the streetlights to LEDs, and then installing a smart lighting system in all areas except for AusNet. In the feedback to the revisal, the following things were proposed by councils. So getting rid of the remaining 50,000 lights, which were predominantly sodium lights, so main road lights. Having AusNet formally install a smart lighting system, and then also funding smart lighting installations on all major roads. So the good news on that is that the AER has said that they support that, and each of the DNSPs is working through how to implement that and what are the cost implications of that process. The last element are things that are not going to be built into the standard project or the default DNSP project. And there are things like changing where a light might go. So not do a standard like for like, but select where you want a specific light to go. For example, there's a lot of lights in residential areas that are major road types that for some historic reason were put in there but are not required. And that extends to things like managing biodiversity and health, the colour of the lights, activating the smart lighting design, so getting those savings from dimming, trimming, and then any other activities around dealing with council assets like open space, car parks and sports lighting. Those elements are the responsibility of councils and were a part of the front-end management system, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Overall, this is an awesome thing. We're expecting a cost of around 200 million or thereabouts across Victoria over this next 5 or 6 years. It's one of the bigger energy efficiency projects that will have ever happened in local governments or for local governments over a period of time like that. The energy cost savings are around double that over the asset life, so over 20 years. And there will be very significant road safety benefits based on improved maintenance, knowing when lights are failing or performing poorly in major roads where most of the very serious accidents happen. And then, of course, critically, emission savings from all this. So this is why it's an awesome project. What we're talking about in this session and a lot of the discussions with both councils and DNSPs is fine-tuning it so you get the majority of the benefits, and it's optimising the outcome for councils. But overall, no matter what happens, it's a very good outcome for everyone. From a smart lighting impact, there's a number of specific benefits from smart lighting. And again, these are activated from the front-end management system. I mentioned road safety already. This also deals with or supports lighting complaints management, biodiversity, and importantly, from a light pollution perspective, it will reduce light pollution by around 10 to 20% by itself. The overall project from street lighting, the overall project will reduce it further. So probably that amount again, which is light pollution is usually or often because of light spill. So these projects will certainly be reducing that light spill. In terms of timing, I mentioned this already, where that little red arrow is. So the draft decision from the AR has come out. Each of the DNSPs are integrating changes into the pricing and the modelling in early December. Do you know, Noel, when we expect to see?
Yeah, we submit again in early December.
Yep. So DNSPs early December. Our understanding is there'll be a relatively tight time frame for response. So potentially over, I'm just checking whether everyone's seeing the screen sharing. Jesse, thanks for putting that comment in. Is everyone now seeing the DNSP screen? Yep, I can see some nods. Might be just you, Jesse. We are recording. So worst case scenario, we can shoot you through the copy at the end. So we'll be having a really good look at all of that hopefully in December, and then responding to whatever is relevant post that.
Positively, of course.
Oh, positively, yes. By April, the final decision will be in from the AR, so all pricing will be known and what the core models are. By this stage of the process, our general experience is that most of the development work is done. Most of the plans are largely, like let's say 90 to 95% done. It doesn't mean that there aren't things that can't be changed, but in general, that 6-month period from January to September, October is really where adjustment and discussion between councils and DNSPs has influence and can change the narrative and the direction. It's hard over a 6-week period over Christmas and early next year to have really significant change. So what we're expecting, and what we'll talk about today is largely what we expect to roll out. That's our view of the world from Ironbark, and also what we've talked to around councils. However, in awesome news, as mentioned, we have the wonderful Noel Twyman.
I did not agree to this photo.
This is a photo from Geelong, I think, yes, when they were doing their LED and smart lighting rollout, and it was one of the very few images I could find on the web of Noel.
I do try to hide.
Nonetheless, Noel will be talking to us about the proposed LED rollout in City Power Core UE. Over to you, Noel.
Thank you, Paul. So look, it was just a brief overview. If you skip to the next slide, I just want to speak about how we are proposing to the shift from changing 50,000 lights from sodium across to LED across the 3 networks is challenging, and what we quickly sort of made, if councils that were fully funded and had lots of money have replaced their lights already. There are lots of councils that don't have the money and have not been able to replace their lights to date, and we wanted a way that we could fund it without impacting those councils that have already paid for their lights. And how do we recover that cost, not through the councils that are impacted, so those councils that haven't yet replaced to LED, but not, and including the DTP as well, Vic Roads, and making sure that they are, that we recover that cost without impacting existing customers, I suppose it's and so the little graph up there showing is essentially an example of Power Core, where you have we've worked through what the cost is for us to replace these lights, and then try to share that cost across different light types. So the 2 examples there are 150 watt high pressure sodium and 250 watt high pressure sodium. They have a higher cost, but they also have for the 250 watt high pressure sodium, but there's a bigger return in energy savings for that light. So the way to look at this graph is showing there will be an upfront cost that will will be charged for the light when it's replaced, and that cost will be charged each year from when it's replaced on a monthly basis. And then, but at the same time, you'll get the savings from moving to the lower ohmad for the light, and also the energy savings. There will be potentially some out of pocket, but we're trying to keep that number, that $44, or on the 250 watts, actually negative $6. So there's you're positive in that regard, but there's no net charge for the 250 watt currently for the power core scenario, and the idea is that will be recovered from the time that the light is replaced through to the end of that 5-year period, and that will stop on the 31st of July, I think, depending on where the charges sit, but it will be at the end of the pricing period. We can come back if people have questions, because it is so essentially, if you change it in year 1, you pay $235. You change it in year two, it's $235. If it gets changed in year 5, it's $235. The sweet spot is the 2.5 years. I suppose everyone is paying that money back over the 5-year period.
So if it's year 1, you're paying $235 times the next 5 years.
Correct.
If it's year 5, it's once.
That's correct.
Yeah, and you're just matching that to the energy savings, so you're aiming for a no net negative.
That's correct.
Yep.
We're trying to keep the cost down as much as possible, but we're having to find a lot of funds to replace these lights. At the end of the 5-year period, so end of this next price period, all lights will all be on the same, treated the same. So they won't be, they'll all have the same OM&R charge. We know that 235 charge won't continue after this price period.
Yep. Questions around this, feel free to put them in the chat, and we can come back to this if we need.
Just before we jump off,
yes.
I just want to mention that that little dot point at the end with regard to decorative lights. There is a small volume, out of the 50,000, there's a small volume of decorative lights. Some councils have very few, some councils have quite a few, and so we're open to working with those councils to potentially include that in the program. But we need to have that discussion early. You'd need to procure those materials. It's going to be very important to make sure that you get the right color, the right type, so we can work with you and help you, and maybe IMBAR can help you as well. But it's if you want to get it included, it needs to be done early, because we'll start and see the next graph. You'll see the volume of lights that we need to replace. Yeah,
there is a quick question from Goran, which I might deal with right now because it's about these graphs. Goran is asking, how much are councils paying now per light for the 150 and 250 watters? I'm presuming that's for maintenance prices. Given there's a $74 decline or whatever it is, do you have roughly in your head the amount?
I think that it's over $100, $120, $150, I think, and then the new price is below the $100 mark.
Yeah.
Certainly, you can see what we published at the start of the year in our draft. That's still the volume. That's the dollars that we're still. It moves a little bit slightly in the next. Our next proposal will be put to the AR, but it's very similar to what's in our proposal at the start of the year.
I will just note that I'll be talking a little bit about cost and savings as well over the 20 years in some further slides. So I can see another question from KDF. So I might let that run, and then we can come back to these if they haven't helped you resolve them. Back to you, Noel.
Cool. The next one is just talking about this bow wave that we're going to be facing over the next 5 years. To change, although I've mentioned the category V lights, we also have a large volume of category P lights, so that which was already included in our draft proposal. They're what they call T5 fluorescent and compact fluorescent lights that will be included in the Minamata Convention, which is the banning or the reduction of mercury in our environment, which is a good thing. but it means there's a whole lot of lights out there that we can't get lamps for going forward, and so we need to change those over to LED. So there's 50,000 category P across the 3 networks, 50,000 category V over the 3 networks. So that graph on the left-hand side, we're going to focus on our category P initially, which is because that's our priority, and then we'll then quickly move into ramping up the category V.
Yep.
There are, I think, recent example was Geelong. I think they did 20,000 lights over 4 years. We're trying to do 20,000 lights in 1 year. So it's going to be a pretty big, tall order for our manufacturers, for our contractors, our internal resources to try and meet that target.
One of the good news stories around that is New South Wales largely finished. Queensland, it'll be over the same period, and WA. So from a national perspective in terms of supply and what have you. But in good news, Noel will be worrying about that.
Yes. It's certainly a public lighting is, if you think of a distribution network, public lighting is small, is the small change, unfortunately or fortunately, considering compared to a lot of the other infrastructure work that we need to do. This is the first big uptake or increase in our budgets that we've had to allow for. It's going to be a challenging next 5 years for me.
And I will just note there was a question from Michelle earlier about the numbers and 150,000 being 25% of streetlights. So in Victoria, there's about 600,000, a bit more. So the majority, 400,000 or so, have already been replaced in Victoria. And so 25% of 600,000 is 150,000. So therefore, that's the equation. So I think my sums are right, but I'm happy to chat offline, Michelle.
And on the right-hand side, one of the requests from local government and is the opportunity to, while we're doing this rollout, is looking at existing LED lights that have already been replaced, look at those getting infill with smart cells, and it was a really positive result from our consultation early in the year, and so we've now included that. So not only are we doing the 100,000 lights, we've also got around 80,000 lights that need to be infilled with smart cells. So there's been a lot of development in both United Energy and Powercore and City Power for that matter, but where the LED lights have been replaced, but with no smart cells, they'll need to be revisited to get those smart cells installed.
Yep. All right. Well, we're getting lots of questions in the chat, which is good. The next bit on this is actually doing a mini Q&A with Noel. So I get to ask him some questions, and then we can keep going with the presentation, but keep putting those questions in the chat. We will get through everything. Who gets to go first, Noel? If I'm a council and I'm desperate to go last or first or something in between, what happens?
So priority will be category P. And so we have a rolling maintenance program today that will continue on. So it'll be the next due for category P, will be the next will be the next, and there'll be multiple councils. We have, although we've got 3 networks, they are managed independently, and so they will get focused all at the same time. So all 3 networks will start from day one, and we'll start pushing out that program for category P. Yep. Category V will be, my view is that it will be deferred or delayed. We don't yet have an approval from the AER to go ahead and do this, and so we can't plan in terms of setting up procurement contracts for both resources and materials. So we want to get that agreement first. We'll get some indication from the AER early, we hope next year. Yep. But until we get that April tick off, that's really that will be the next driver for category V in particular. They've already given us not the green light, but some good indication about the category P and what our proposal was there, and we're locked into that. We can't not do that because of the banning of those lamp types. With regard to category V, there are some councils that have lots of category V lights, and what I envisage happening is they will be spaced over the 5 years, those councils with large volumes, and then the other councils will fit in between. Powercall being the exception, is that we will probably, because of its geographic nature, we probably won't go from Mildura to Glenelg to Echuca. We'll probably do it in a roller coaster and try and plan that efficiently.
And in terms of, so from a council perspective, is it your intent to, in the short to medium term, put out a plan? So 2026, this is what's happening, correct. These councils, and so on.
So to get that graph that I had up there before, I had to use some logic. And what we need to do now is go back to when were those, the volume, if we have particularly for category P, is making sure that it fits with our program that we've got existing. And then also with the category V, not as prescriptive, so we can probably be a bit more flexible. Some of I know one council has something in the order of around 7,000 to be done. That'll be probably done over 2 years.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, question number 2. What are councils going to be able to do with the smart cells, and by when?
Good news or bad news? I'm not sure. So today it's really an exciting day for us. We're in the process of putting our central management system called City Edge into production as a technical go live. It doesn't mean there'll be no lights in there as yet. It's more about getting all the plumbing right in the back end. So there's a whole lot of infrastructure to tie into our existing metering system, and so to make sure it's safe, make sure it's secure. What we want to make sure is putting streetlights into this existing system is great, and it's a great leverage of a network that we all paid for. But now, how do we make sure that adding streetlights doesn't compromise it?
Yeah. And
typically, our metering system is all locked away in what we call an OT zone, so no one has access to that environment other than someone internal to the company. We wanted to make sure that streetlights would be accessible outside of that, our OT zone. So that's the journey that we've been on for the last 6 to 12 months, and we're now very close to getting it into production, which is great. What will they get? So it does enable us to know whether they're working. So it's currently under our public lighting code, we patrol roads 3 times a year, and we do that effectively and well. In the future, and once all of these streetlights are replaced with smart cells, we could do a patrol 365 days a year. I may not want to do that, but that is in essence what we could do. It will enable us to have a much better view of our network. The other positive for councils is working with enabling dimming, enabling scheduling, enabling trimming of lights. All is possible, and with the CMS that we've brought in. But it's a bit of work to go into we want to make sure that we keep the lights on. Is probably our priority, and we will keep a very close, because we're responsible for repairing that light. We don't want a third party jumping in and switching the light off without our knowledge, because that results in us having to roll a truck. So we want to make sure we're working together cooperatively and collaboratively.
Awesome. If councils want to influence the project, so help you know what colour temperature, for example, or whether to remove major roads from minor roads, and I guess especially for those councils in the first 1 or 2 years of the Category P rollout, what do they need to do? How can they influence the project?
Probably Look, my email is always open, so that it's in the list. It'll be in the presentation at the end. What we certainly received feedback that the majority of councils, and our consultation was that majority of councils wanted to move to 3,000 Kelvin for their residential lights, whereas their major road lights would retain the 4,000 Kelvin, and certainly DTP has asked that as well. But we're moving to change our standard light that we would roll out to be 3,000 Kelvin for category P.
Yep.
With the understanding that there is some energy detraction, but it's very minor now. They've been able to, I think we're around 12 watts, and that seems to be the line in the sand for both 3,000 and 4,000.
Last question, and for the moment, I think you've already mentioned decorative lights. Yes. So can you just quickly recap what's going to happen with decoratives?
So currently decoratives, where they're residential lights that are fitted with an 80 watt or a compact fluorescent lamp, we're going through the process of bypassing that ballast and putting in a LED lamp to keep the light on. So we haven't been able to relamp with mercury vapor for a number of years, and so we've been progressively, as those councils, those lamps come due for replacement, we're replacing them with an LED lamp, and to keep that light on in the interim, ultimately that light will need to be replaced, but we're hoping that we can extend that life of that light either to the life of the pole. So some of those poles will be reaching the end of their life, so that's an opportunity to replace the pole and the lantern at the same time. Or a council may decide the energy savings for a LED lamp are not the same as an LED lantern that's purpose built, and so there's there may be councils that want to bulk replace those. We are open, so the door is open, but we need to have that consultation early if they want to be included in our program of rollout.
So anything other than a lamp replacement. So the standard will be, we'll put in an LED lamp.
Yep.
If you want something different, then you need to talk to us.
Correct.
All right, awesome. We're going to keep going with the presentation and then come back to questions more towards the end. One of the things that you said is you want to know more about the system. There are 4 elements to it. The elements in the orange box are what the DNSPs will be installing. So central CMS, the network and the smart lighting controller. As Noel mentioned, that is essentially to be able to control the lights, understand what's happening with them from a maintenance perspective, and is the plumbing of the system. I think that was to quote you. The front-end management is so that councils can design and plan for what to do. So this is how you control things like traffic, compliance, safety, biodiversity, and what are all your internal management systems. So that front-end management system is required to take advantage of the smart lighting system. So you know what to dim, you know what levels, you know how it's going to impact on your residents and what decisions that you want to make, and how to maintain it over time. Yes, one thing I did want to mention is that there's obviously a direct interaction between these. And a key element of this is around operating procedures. So this will guide how councils can interact with the DNSP smart lighting system. So in City Power Core and UE, there is some work already being done on this. Do you want to give us a quick rundown, Noel, on the status of those and where you see the next steps around those operating procedures?
Yeah, so we've been working with Ironbark, but we've also been undertaking some work on it ourselves to get to a point of a draft position of what and initially we don't propose any access to a third party to the system in the interim, just while we bed it down, while we get a firm understanding of what can be done, what can't be done. But we have built the system around the ideal that a council would be provided access, initially read only, so they could see those lights and be able to receive reports. But in the future, we're hoping that we can extend that to enable some limited access, and depending on, I suppose ultimately we've got to work together. And what I don't want is, and neither of us want is, if somebody comes in and hasn't used it before and makes a mistake, we want to make sure we don't make those mistakes, because it can be detrimental. Either lights are switched off, or it causes us, the lights are off and we have to send a truck out there to fix them.
So part of the process over the next 6 months or so will be road testing. How do these systems actually work? How do they interact? And how can councils ensure that your control levels flow through to the DNSP system? So that's a to-do and is partway in production, but there'll be some more work to be done before it gets finalised. And it will be exciting when we do get there. So as previously mentioned, this is similar to what we talked about last time. I did want to just roll over what your responsibilities as councils are. One of the things that a lot of councils are doing now is having an options paper created, which essentially guides the decision-making on what you want to influence during the project and after the project. I'll talk a little bit more on that in a second. And then importantly, doing some design work so that you can influence the DNSP rollout project. As we've heard from Noel, it's quite important for Category P in City Power, Powercourt and UE in the near term because of that rollout program, but we will have a better sense of the exact timing over the next little while as we understand which councils are going when. In terms of that options paper, I did want to just talk through this a little bit because there are a number of specific options for councils within projects and within the rollout. In the AusNet region, there is the choice of councils funding these projects or having the DNSP funding the projects. As Noel showed earlier, it's a co-funding arrangement where councils are being asked to fund part of the project and the DNSP is funding part of it. And in Gemina, that's still being developed. So we'll provide further information when it comes to hand on that. So the options paper will dig into this, understand what the cost benefits of the different approaches are. Obviously looking at design choices. And this is really around what's your long-term public lighting system look like? What colour lights do you want where? How do you want to manage the lighting in major roads versus residential? What's the key to dealing with safety, amenity, biodiversity, etc.? So those design choices. How are you going to manage decoratives? So this is a small issue for some councils and an enormous issue for others. And so talking through and walking through what are the key options around that long term. So we're talking 10, 20, 30-year management of decoratives is a really critical part of this project. Ideally, the alignment around some of these decisions is not just streets. So you are deciding, you've got a street of a certain colour, you're deciding how that influences zones within your council for car parking or pathways or others. So aligning the policy decisions and the design choices, both in street lighting, but also off-street lighting assets makes complete sense. And it's relatively straightforward to ensure that's done at the same time. And then the ongoing smart management. So we are seeing councils making different choices around smart lighting. Geelong, for example, which Noel mentioned, has put smart lighting across every single light. A lot of other councils are rolling with the proposed approach for major roads and then some installations in minor roads. But there's a lot of other choices around smart lighting as well. And then finally, project timing. So getting in early can influence project timing. There are cost implications of that. So understanding what those implications look like. Just to give you a little taster, here's some of the analysis that we are seeing. This is, I'll say it's dummy, but that's not true. It's quite closely correlated to some of the findings we're seeing from specific councils. So this is showing First column is current cost stack. So what's a 1-year cost for the public lighting system? And then looking at what the future system looks like. So the good news in this example is that the future system is cheaper overall. So each of those 4 options are cheaper from an operational cost stack. And then within those, there's the option to fund it from a council perspective, to include activation of the smarts or not, and then to fully allow external funding. So each of those have different cost stack implications, and that's a key element here. However, you can't look at that by itself without understanding what is the capital cost, for example. So this is the same for options. So external funding, council funding, or accepting the DNSP approach. In this example, you can see there is a capital cost in there. This is based on what Noel outlined earlier for Powercore UE. I think we averaged 2.5 years or something for this graph. So there is some capital costs there for councils, but obviously counterbalancing that is what is the value. So what is the net value that comes back to council over the asset life? You can see that net value piece is highly varied for these 4 examples and significantly different, as is the capital cost component. So each of these are quite important for councils, understanding those capital costs, what's the long-term value look like, but also understanding what am I expecting to pay in 2026 or 2028? How does that vary from our budget today? So these are some of the things that are coming out of the options paper, and we're seeing is quite important for councils to help them make decisions about which approach they're going to take, and then obviously move to implementing that approach. All right, so that was all essentially in the planning. Obviously, 2026 to 2031 is all about implementation. So making sure the project is delivered as you wanted it to, and then starting to transition to the new smart lighting system, how you manage it, how you use it, whether that's for biodiversity reasons, whether it's to help you manage a festival that's in your council. So that will be a stage 2 priority, but stage 1 is in that planning stage. So how are we going? We've got 15 minutes to go or so. This is really just a wrap up and then summary of the next steps, and then we'll go back to Q&A. And I can see there's about 190 million questions in the chat, which is very exciting.
My parking's about to expire.
Yeah. Okay, so for all councils, if you haven't already, I know a lot of councils are already on the way in terms of options papers. We'd recommend doing that, especially to inform that budget planning and design planning work, which we also recommend doing relatively early, so in the next 6 months or so. At worst, getting budget to do that work early in the 26-27 year. For regional cities, the same as for councils generally, but also start thinking about and discussing regional approaches and looking at how we can build in a regional city anchor to then go and support the other councils around you. And then, as always, Ironbark and MAV will be working on project planning. We'll be collaborating and talking with the DNSPs around timing of all of this. So we'd like to be able to provide information as it comes to hand around who goes when. And then we will be reporting back in early next year once we get further information on the DNSP plans and the AR provides confirmation of what goes ahead. So I guess we're committing to keeping you updated on all of this. I've put the support request form in there as well. Ironbark have been for 16 years now engaged by MAV to support councils under the SL 8010 2024 panel. It was 2011 at one point. So happy to support whenever we need, and you can reach out directly to me if you want to as well. we will be sending all this around, all this further information. And on to Q&A. I might start with the chat, Noel, unless there's anything additional that you'd like to add at this point.
Good.
All right, so I'm just going to go back. Going to go back all the way to Chris, who at 11:23 had a question for Noel on graphs. Love the graphs. Let's go all the way back to the graphs. The question is, over 5 years, will the HPS 150 watt cost an additional $44 per annum each? We get to the effectively $220 over 5 years. And how would that contribution likely be demonstrated on our utility bills?
So it'll be charged monthly. So for when the light is replaced, the charge will
so it's $235 divided by 12.
Correct. Okay. And that'll be the monthly charge. It'll be included in your current OM&R charge. The energy savings you would get through your energy retailer but the OM&R would be replaced. So if it was a high pressure sodium in July and now in August it's now LED, you'll get an LED OM&R charge.
And so these numbers are obviously for Powercore. In United Energy, it'll be slightly different. In City Power, it'll be slightly different.
And just so we're clear, OM&R charges start from year one. They get increased each year with CPI, but the OM&R charges also go up conversely by CPI. So they won't be $235 every year. It will increase each year.
By CPI.
By CPI.
Okay. Michelle's question is, are we expecting the other DNSPs to propose a similar pricing model, or might it be quite different? I can say, Michelle, that it will be quite different. So no other DNSPs we're aware of are proposing the replacement charge, the $235. As mentioned, AusNet at this stage, so we'll have to see the actual Excels and what comes through in December, but are proposing a council-funded tariff and then a DNSP-funded tariff. And so that allows councils to choose one or the other. And if you choose a council-funded tariff, then council will pay for the whole project. If it's a DNSP-funded, then the DNSP will pay for the whole project. Gemini, again, we'll see what they come out with in December. Question from Kay Diath is, are these going to be Sylvania lights? And then there's a follow-up from Goran, is the lighting management software selected? Which you mentioned City Edge.
Yeah, so we've leveraged off our existing mesh network that controls we've got around 2 million meters that currently use this mesh for bringing back all of your meter readings from different houses and commercial properties. We're using that same mesh, and we did some due diligence, and we decided to continue with the product that was provided by Itron, which is a product called City Edge. That is a central management system that integrates well with that existing mesh.
And in terms of Gemini, I'm not aware of them deciding yet which product to use, and AusNet are in trials currently as well. So they haven't formally made a decision. Question.
Sorry, there was a question about the manufacturer of the lantern.
Yes.
We have a panel of so we don't just have one supplier. Certainly, Sylvania is one of our main suppliers, but we also have a number of other suppliers that are approved for use, and there are a number of suppliers that are on our panel or tender that were selected for provision of lighting as well. Okay. So it may change depending on who's got the best cost and can provide the material at the right time. We may vary.
And if you want to know what's on that product list, it mirrors what's on the MAV product list, because that is the determinant on what's on that list is it approved by the DNSP. Quentin's excited about the graphs and is wanting to understand, is the cost of the central management system embedded in the OMR? A. B, is the cost of light supply included in the replacement charge on the graph? So is that everything, or is there something else?
Everything except decorative lights. So non-standard lights will still be procured by the council or by DGP if they have any. And so it's an all-inclusive price where we think we tried to keep it fair and reasonable, considering some lights are on. Some of our lights are on freeway. So I think Quentin from Ballarat, some of the lights that we have to replace are on the Ballarat on the Western Freeway, which is not where we'd like to be. It takes a whole lot of effort, a lot of cost to access those freeways to replace lights. So we've tried to smear the cross. There'll be some lights that are on easy access roads that we can pull up and don't even need traffic control. So it does vary from site to site, and so we've tried to average that cost out.
Yeah. Okay. Goran asks, will the councils going to be able to have access to the CMS view only, the status of the lights? Will your CMS be able to integrate with our CMS?
Good question.
Will we be able to see all public lights?
Yeah. So we will. Our request when we built this system was to ensure that we had a way of connecting a council CMS to this CMS and to our CMS, essentially through an API, and that is our hope. We're certainly not doing that from day one, but that is the hope, is that we would be able to grant that access, certainly for read only. So councils will be able to read only once we move into the next price period, but whether we can extend that to being able to control streetlights is still until we get that operating procedure agreed. That's probably where we're stuck.
Yep. So more exciting news for our March or April webinar potentially. Another question from Quentin. Will the Cat V on collector roads in residential areas go to 3,000 or 4,000K?
Good question. Currently, our preference would be to have one light type for main road, one light type for residential roads. And so ideally, collector roads and arterial roads would all be at 4,000 Kelvin.
Yeah. And our answer would be, tell us what you want, let's work it through, and we can speak to PowerCore in your case about what's possible. So it's something
not saying no, but it just, I suppose from you mentioned a truck rolling out, they've got two lights, and now they've got four lights, and it just adds to the complexity and the risk of putting up the wrong light. And this is very early days, but we have had some discussion with a couple of manufacturers about tunable white lights.
Okay.
I probably wasn't going to mention it, but I will now that I've opened my mouth, is the idea that you could put up a light that could, and it does come with a higher cost, but you could, in a brave new world, we could put up a light that from sundown till 8 o'clock, it's at 4,000 Kelvin. And so not just dimming, but now changing the color temperature to reducing that to a warmer color overnight, and then putting the back up to a white light in the morning.
Do you know what the capital cost difference is, roughly?
This is early discussions.
This is not part of this program.
Not part of this program, but it's on the horizon.
Sounds very interesting.
They already do this for in offices, and so that DALI protocol is available today. What we don't have is, they have to do some work on the CMS. We have a calendar today with a CMS that enables you to dim the light at different times. It doesn't also enable you to change the color temperature at different times yet, but I think that's on their roadmap. So exciting.
Cool. Question from Kadiath about DOT roads. So Bell Street and Sydney Road, as an example, DOT, will they be paying for the upgrades to decorative fixtures, or will that funding be cost shared? And I guess the answer is depends what council negotiates with DOT. It's not
us.
The DNSP will do it if you tell them to, but it's up to council to negotiate with DOT.
And just on those costs that we've got on this graph, it's if it's a cost shared road, the costs are shared as well. So that 235 is shared between the DTP and council.
Yeah. Shane from Knox. Councils are setting their 26-27 budgets now. When will we know how much extra budget we need to try to obtain to cover the net $44 installation cost?
Fair point.
It's a timing question in terms of the replacement charge.
We'll submit in December. You'll have visibility of that, I believe, and then so that'll be the line in the sand for what we think it will be, and then. But it depends on when the AR approves that in April, before it's locked in. But you'd certainly know from December what we're proposing.
Yeah, and then it's probably the other side of that equation is when will a council
hit the
Category V rollout? Keep in mind that won't happen till 27, 28. So from a cost perspective, it's probably only going to be positive in the first year for most councils.
And my replacement program is over calendar years, and I understand council on financial years. So that's why you see at the end of that next graph, the last year is 2031 is quite small because we've only got 6 months to replace lanterns.
So you're going to start hitting the ground running in January on the Cat P rollout.
Correct.
Okay, we've got less time than what we thought. VEEC rebates from a question from Quentin. Quentin, I can answer that one. These projects, we believe, can create VEECs, and we're in the process of working through what that looks like with the ESC. So happy to chat further once we understand those costs. But feel free to reach out and happy to speak in more detail about VEECs. From Jesse, that energy savings is reliant on Type 9 metering approval, though, correct? So
no, this is not. This is only based on out of the box 250 watt compared to a 150 watt. So that's looking at the energy savings, just going from high pressure sodium to LED in our graphs. You're right. You'll get further if you dim or trim. You would get further, but only once we go to Type 9.
Yeah, so of the 200 million, 400 million savings, around 150 million or thereabouts, so about a third of that 400 million savings is based on the Type 9 metering and obviously the smart lighting. I was going to go forward, but actually we already had it backwards. Doesn't matter. That's all good. Yep, so there's definitely some chunk of that that is because of smart lighting. And in these examples here, in these graphs, so if you look at the operational cost stack, the smart lighting, council-funded smart lighting is lower, and that's largely because of the energy component. Do you want to say anything about Type 9 metering now?
Yes and no.
Obviously, that is a key thing for the smart lighting system.
Yeah, there's two very different models. Victoria compared to the rest of Australia. We're in a very if we continue down this path, Victoria will be well positioned. Maybe not from the rule comes into effect from May next year, 30th of May next year. But there's a whole lot of water that needs to go under the bridge. One of the first ones is a pattern approval. So getting your smart metering device approved by NMI. Now, to my knowledge, there are no smart small metering devices that have been approved by NMI today. And we're hopeful that they would the smart cell that we use will be approved. Certainly, we've been trying to assist Itron, who's trying to get that device approved. We're assisting them where we can. I know that other companies are trying to do the same, but I'm not aware of anyone approving. So that's the first part. The second part is having a CMS that you can demonstrate. So a small metering device does it have a register that you can look at it like you can with a meter, and so it requires a CMS to work in conjunction with that small metering device. And so getting approval requires a CMS and that device, that's a smart cell, approved together. And again, I'm not aware of anyone that's been able to get that over the line yet with NMI, which is a National Metering Institute of Australia. So I think we're in a really good place in Victoria, and certainly City Power Core and UE, we're as I said, we'll have our CMS up and running. There's another component that needs to be built to enable metering on this large scale. So although the CMS enables you to see the reading of the light, what you can't see is the way that if a light stops communicating, stops sending the data for whatever reason, maybe we're unable to receive the data because the power was out. There's a requirement to have a substitution, which is AEMO has been working through with distributors and retailers on how do we substitute loads. And when you're talking thousands of
data points,
it becomes quite, and the requirement is it's on a 5-minute interval. So the data for a 5-minute interval we've now got 40,000 smart cells, and now if we increase over the next 5 years to 150,000 streetlights with smart cells that are giving 5-minute intervals, and we lose the power to a chunk of them, or there might be a cell stops working. There's a whole lot of complexity that needs to be worked through for us, let alone each DNSP or each retailer or whoever metering coordinator would need to work through that process.
So the short answer is there's been a lot of work done already. There will be a lot more work to come in the next 6 months, and it's a key focus and priority, but the system's not ready right now and isn't designed to be until at least mid next year.
Look, when we built the CMS, so I think there was an earlier question about who's funding the CMS in City Power. In our case, we're actually funding it through our business because we see it as a benefit to us in managing streetlights. We will endeavour to recover some of that cost because it's significant, but I think we've tried to where there's a benefit for us, we've tried to pass that through to our councils.
I'm just conscious that we are after 12 and we drifted past 12 without me even noticing. It was so interesting and exciting. We only have 1 or 2 more questions to go, which we will work through. But obviously, if you need to jump off, jump off. And Jesse, I'm hoping that answers your question. In terms of the $30, yes, that does require the Type 9 metering. Justin has a question. We have major roads passing through AusNet and UE. Will the rollout be coordinated so the lighting is consistent in both DNSPs?
It's already not consistent. So when a high-pressure sodium light stops working today, we're replacing that with LED. We've spoken to the DTP earlier when we started this program because we were concerned about that. Their belief is whenever you put up an LED light, it improves the color rendition, the safety improves. So every LED light is better than no LED light, and they weren't concerned by the change in color. But this will be as we roll out, we'll roll it out in a consistent method, although you might get to the border of AusNet, likely, that will change from white light to yellow light today, but it will transition over the 5-year period.
And I guess the good news is, hopefully within the next 3 to 6 months, we'll have a timing for all of the programs across all the DNSPs. So we'll certainly be able to advise councils on an individual basis on how that works.
Sorry, we already have like some of our major arterials like Hoddle Street. One side is yellow, the other side is white. Like that there's been no increase in safety or decrease in safety.
Yeah. That was not a dig at Yarra. Is that right?
No, it was.
Of course not.
Could have been Stonington as well.
All right, everyone. I think we've come to the end of the questions. As always, please feel free to call or send any other questions through to either myself or Noel. I'd like to thank Noel for attending, and it's been awesome, very useful. Hope you have all found it useful. Thanks for joining, and we will see you at the next one.
No one asked a question.